Hey, Creataholics. I want to take a moment to share a story with you. It's about the universe. It's about something that happened to me. I believe that the universe gives us messages and tries to get our attention when it feels that it needs to. So they say the rule that if you don't listen to the universe and you don't listen to God, whatever you call it, that you're going to end up sick and in the hospital because it's going to give you a lot of signs that lead up to that. And funny enough, I had made a decision consciously to focus more on Creataholics, and I was only going to do recording from my house. And I made a conscious effort to decide anything that was outside of the house I wasn't going to go do because I wanted that time to focus on Creataholics. And really, honestly, I've talked about fractals in the past, but my heart knew that somebody else was supposed to be in that chair. It wasn't me. And I started feeling that later as I was doing these sessions of the kind of the joy and the process of it was for somebody else. I didn't feel like it was for me anymore. And I listened to it. It took me a while, and it's really scary to leave that world, but I had to honor it. And I honored it. And I decided that I was going to allow other people to be in those seats. So, a funny story. COVID, coming near the end of it, I had got COVID, and my partner Sarah hadn't got COVID, and we planned this Canadian trip. We're gonna go see all of Canada. Like, it's just an awesome trip. I hadn't been home since COVID. It was like 3.5 years. We're gonna go to wineries. We're gonna do some hiking. I mean, it was just gonna be the most epic trip. And it was middle of July, the best time to be in Vancouver. So the week before, I get a call from a gentleman who said, "Hey, I got your name from another gentleman, and I'm flying in from Hawaii, and I really would like you to play on this record or this track." And I told him, I was like, "No, I'm not doing that anymore, but I can recommend some people." And I guess he was so set on it being me that he went to proceed to, like, "Please, can you just do it? I know that I want you to do this." And that ego perked up, and I'm like, "Okay, I can do one more." So I finally agreed to it. I said, "Fine, I'll do it," because the person that recommended me is a great guy, and I would like to honor that. So I put my bass clarinet. It was a bass clarinet and clarinet. Put it in the car, and I drive to the session that I said that I was not going to do anymore. I'm driving to the session. I get there, and right as I enter the studio, I hear. I was like, "Holy crap! Please tell me that guy doesn't have COVID, please." So I walk in, and I sit there, and he just continually keeps coughing. And I ask him, I'm like, "Man, like, I have a trip to Canada, and if I get COVID, I can't go. Like, do you have COVID?" And he's like, "No, just a scratchy throat." And I was like, "Okay." So he put a mask on sometimes, but and again, however you feel about masks doesn't really matter. We were all in the same room, and he's leaning over me, and he's coughing, and setting the microphone up. So I do the session, and I'm pissed off in my own head. I'm like, why did I say yes to this, first of all? And if I get COVID and can't go to Canada, I am not going to be happy. So I go home, and I just had this feeling. And then about 4 or 5 days later, 2 days before the trip, I get COVID. And I'm down. It was only like a 24-hour thing for me. Sarah ended up getting it, and we had to, on the day before flying out, we had to cancel the entire trip. And if that was not a lesson from the universe, I don't know what was. And needless to say, I have not done a session outside of the house since. And I do believe that when it's time for you to move on from something, somebody else wants that thing. So aside from the Canada trip, a quick story on what that means to me. So later in the month, or in the summer, a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, I would love you to come to the studio for 3 days. It paid really well, and it was a drive, so we're going to have to stay there 3 days." And old me would have been super stoked about this. But I took a minute, and I had just learned my lesson. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be in that chair. But somebody else would like to be in that chair. Not only do they would love that money for whatever it is, their family or whatever, But they also would love that experience. I've had that experience already. Somebody else should do it. Sure enough, he got somebody else, and it was a great fit. And I'm sure he did a great job. He had just had a newborn kid, so I know the money went to a great place. And the funny thing is the next week I got an email from a client up in Boston, and he was offering me an ad to write, and it was 3 times the amount of money that this gig paid. So by honoring the universe and allowing this other person to reap the benefits and the rewards of this opportunity, because that was something that they would love to do, allowed the space for this other thing that was more in alignment with what I wanted, what I needed, and what I was skilled to do. It was a perfect example of where you put your energy and where you put your intention is where it goes. So letting go of that energy of that session allowed space for this other thing to move in it. And that is what the universe does. I really believe that there's messages. I believe we need to listen to it. And there's a lot of ways that the universe sends messages, but just take time in your life to take inventory of what are the things that you're doing. Who are you with? Who are you working for? Who are you spending the majority of your time with? And ask yourself, is this really in alignment with who I am, where I want to be? Is it pushing me forward? Is it keeping me stuck? Because somebody wants to be in that spot. Most of the time, somebody would love to be in that spot. Somebody wants an opportunity, and they're going to come at it with such a beautiful energy that you might not have, because it might be a chore to you, or it might be something that you're just doing for the money, or it might be something that your heart's not in it anymore. So please take an inventory of your life and say, where am I showing up that it's not really in alignment? And maybe somebody else wants that space. Because if you allow it to leave, it creates this vacuum. And then the universe says, well, we're going to bring you now what it is that's more in alignment. So happy inventory taking. I know it's not fun, but I highly recommend it. And then just keep your ears open, your heart open, and just know that every time you show up, you want to show up consciously and you want to show up with love. And if you do that, the universe will bring you and reward you with the things that you deserve. So until next time, peace and love. Thank you so much for listening. If you're new to meditation, experienced with meditation, or looking for a new one to add to your collection, go to creataholics.us to download my free custom meditation, A Glowing Heart. It'll guide you on a journey with handcrafted music to bring light and energy to our most valuable asset, our heart. Peace and love.